I focus a lot on beliefs and transforming.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's, Jesus came to earth, did his thing, taught 12 men, and then transformed the world with those 12. He saw gold in them. And if you read the scriptures, all of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you go, I wouldn't choose these guys as leaders. I just wouldn't. And he chooses them.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Abilities Podcast. I am your host, Nick Earhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. This episode of the Infinite Abilities Podcast is brought to you by the one and only Infinite Toolbox, where just like all other toolboxes, we will get the job done, guaranteed. Whether you're an entrepreneur looking to save time, boost revenue, or automate your processes, Infinite Toolbox has got you covered. With powerful tools designed to drive leads, expand your reach, and gain your industry secrets, we help you work smarter, not harder. Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Visit us at infinitetoolbox.com. That's infinitetoolbox.com, and discover how infinite your potential really is. All right, everyone. So today I have Claire, and their energy is just amazing. So I can't wait for this episode. It's gonna be really great. So, Claire, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I help particularly women at this point in my life, niche it down, right? Understand what's holding them back so they can let go and move forward without so much energy, and it's usually a belief. It's a mindset. It's just a simple thing that started when before you were 7, and you just unhook that, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, the boat's racing down the aisle. The lake.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. We all tend to have things that happen, like you say, usually before we're 7, that really hold us back our whole life. Yeah. And for people like us, we can help others realize what that is and then get over it and see the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have ADHD, which is part of why I bring the energy, and, in my day, we didn't diagnose that kind of stuff. So I spent 20 years of my life, 25 years of my life undiagnosed. But man, you put me in the Bible and it was like my niche, and I knew everything. I'd listen to it, I'd read it, and I'd have it solid down. And people were like, how is she 15 and know that all that stuff? It was my niche. It's where I'm uniquely gifted. So,
yeah, and when you figure out where you're uniquely gifted, I like that you said that. When you figure that out, man, your life just like changes. You're just like, oh, I'm on this path. This is what I can do. This is how I can help people. Now let's go. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, you mind if I give an example of one young man that I worked with? Yeah, and this was before I even understood what I was doing, right? He loved animals, and he blames me for his love of animals. And I was like, thank you. Your father's not happy with me, but you're an adult now, so it's not your problem, his problem anymore. But if he had worked with teachers around animals, I mean, he can remember whole breeding time for cows and stuff. And he's good and soft with cows. You get him around people and he's less than. But, you get him around cows and he can do all kinds of stuff. And he's patient and he works well with them. And he can remember and add up things and know things. And I'm just looking at him like, you had trouble even sitting in school. But just think if they had worked around his gifting of animals, he'd be doing math, he'd be reading, he'd be doing any of that stuff at a high level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that because I had a guest on my show, and she's in the education system, and she has like I guess like her process is a lot different than traditional education.
Yeah.
She believes every child is different, which they are. Every
Mm-hmm.
child learns different, which they do.
Right.
So we need to tailor our education around specific groups of children. And I
Right.
thought that was just amazing. So yeah,
Yeah.
it goes along with what you just said. If they
Yeah,
were
no kid came out of their womb with an owner's manual that said, this kid really likes ladybugs and all kinds of red bugs. Do everything you can around red bugs with this kid.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
That's it. You have to trial and error. And I watch so many of these kids, they try to redirect them back to what they're doing because they got to hit a standardized test. And I'm just like, the more I worked in education, I'm like, let's gear it towards what they're good at. And I'm just a sub, but I can figure out what they're good at. And I'm like, who cares about the test? They're never going to do well with it. Whether you push them on it and push them and push them. I just kind of laugh, like, find their niche.
Yeah. Figure out what they like and then work with them that way.
Yeah. And you can begin to push some of the things like, being able to do some basic stuff that they need to get done. Once they've got this, like, oh my goodness, I'm super good at this. Okay, you're super good at this. Let's spend 15 minutes on this that you're super good at. And then let's spend 5 minutes on this thing we really got to get done today. Right? And they'll get it done.
Yep. And, I feel like a lot of us don't really learn how to learn until we're an adult.
Exactly.
We don't figure out what works for us until long after schooling. And then we're going through a course or we get a coach or anything. And we're like, oh, if I do this, I really get the information in and I keep it. I retain the information. And that's something that I'm working on myself. It's like, okay, what works for me the best? Because if I sit down and listen to a book, I don't retain a whole lot of it. If I listen and read at the same time, I retain a lot more. So it's like little things like that. Like in school, if they would have said, "Hey, you should try to listen and read this book at the same time," but they didn't. It's like I could have done a lot better in school if I would have even known, I could do that.
Yeah. See, Jack Canfield talked about idyllic memory, where you're the 1% of the population where if you say purple elephant, your brain goes, I see the knee, I see the body, I see the trunk, I see the ears, I see it all, and it's in vivid color. If I tell you to look at it and turn it into a blue elephant, you can go, oh, it's a blue elephant. It's no longer gray, And when he said that, I was like, oh my goodness, this is why I can remember things that are on the board from school. And I was like, I have visual memory. So you take me, I love audiobooks, but I do better if I can listen and read. It's in there and it's locked. I was looking for notes earlier today and I was like, I know I wrote that down on this part of the page. And I'm looking through my journal going, it's not on any of these. I need it. I need those notes because it was really important for a presentation I'm doing, that I need the ad copy for. And I was like, I know I wrote it in this part of the page. I searched through my journal 4 or 5 times and then I finally said, that's it. I'm looking through everything else and I started pawing through papers and the next day I found it and I was like, see, I told you it was right here in part of the page.
That's funny. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, how do you like to spend your time?
Well, I like to spend my time. I'm a teacher by nature, and I'm a Bible teacher by nature. I mean, I had the athletes and the ed majors in undergrad that were all, they were like, hey, you can get us through this class. I was like, sure, go ahead. I'd have two different groups because the ed majors and the sports people needed a little bit of a different, whatever.
Yep.
And I turned everything Bible into a sports analogy. And I was like, I don't know enough about soccer to have just talked about what I talked about. But I pulled on something, and they all passed.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
I just found that I was a natural teacher, and it helped me a lot, and so when I can teach for two, man, it's in there.
Yep. That's really awesome. And what's really cool is when you learn something and then you teach it, now you really know that subject or topic or whatever it is. Like, that's what I've been trying to do lately. It's like, okay, if I learn something new, who can I teach it to? Because then it helps me retain that information even more.
Yeah.
So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah. And I always like to empower, the young people who shows they're safe. You can't be. And so I had one kid in one of my classes. I was like, this one is a natural leader. And she had a friend who was a natural leader, but lacked confidence in her leadership ability.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to pair those two up. And I'm going to get those two leading together. And I watched this kid go from a quiet, shy kid to somebody who's empowered because she walked with this other child. Yeah. And it was like, but then as I started to separate them, she could still hold that tenacity to lead. And I was like, whew. It's
That's
just
some good work. Yeah. Yep. And that goes with you are who you hang around. They say you're the average of the 5 people you hang around. So it's very important to recognize what kind of people are you around. Yeah. And then if those people aren't aligning with your goal, well, time to go find new people. You don't have to eliminate people. Right. You just, limit the time you spend with them.
Yeah, so, exactly. Nobody wants to be that cast-off friend, right?
No.
Like, why are you hanging around with me? Well, I decided I was going to raise my standard of life, and you weren't on it.
Yeah. It's not like that. It's just, limit your time and go find new people. I've done that a lot over the past 2 years. And, you do get some of your friends that are like, you don't hang out as much. It's like, well, I have goals, and I'm working on my goals. So I'm sorry, but right now, this is what I'm doing. Right. So I still love you just the same. I just gotta focus on myself.
Right. So yeah, and that's what we do. And we move and drift a little bit, but I have people who I don't talk to them very often these days.
Yep.
But I get right with them, and it's like no time has passed.
Exactly.
And we're just not moving in the same streams, but it doesn't mean we don't have relational equity with each other. So
exactly. Ooh, relational equity. I like that. I like that. Thank you. I like learning new little phrases. It's like, oh, that's a good one. Yeah. So yeah, cool. So let's talk more about your business. What are you focused on right now?
I focus a lot on beliefs and transforming. For me, it's, Jesus came to earth, did his thing, taught 12 men, and then transformed the world with those 12. He saw gold in them. And if you read the scriptures, all of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you go, I wouldn't choose these guys as leaders. I just wouldn't. And he chooses them, and, he calls out something in them, and they start to change. And one of my favorite scriptures right now is Acts 3. It's in the middle, and it says, I give you what I have. And the Lord's like teaching me, you are carrying something. You're carrying something that's going to draw people to you. Just let that be your carry. Don't get distracted by chasing butterflies, on theological issues. Stay with what you carry. And I'm like, okay. And it's, liberation and freedom and transformation and getting you not to just act like Jesus, think like Jesus, bring a solution from heaven. And then you're not acting. You're just transformed. And it just flows out of you.
Yeah, I agree. And, you make me realize that I need to read my Bible more. I'm not that far into it, so I got baptized this year, so I'm kind of just getting started on my faith journey, but I absolutely love it. But I do know I need to read more of the Bible so I understand more.
Well, you know what I tell new believers? I go, number one, I love the Old Testament. I'm an Old Testament scholar. But you're a Christian. Start with the New Testament. Read it. Just read it like you would read a normal book. You're not going to dissect it yet. Just read it for background information. Now go and read it a second time. And I don't care if it takes you a year to read it. Just read it, right? And now go, who is God in this book? Who is Jesus in this book, in the New Testament? And then go, what does he say I am now as a new creation? And now you're ready for deep study. Now you're ready to pick apart Greek or, go up, because most people don't understand what they're studying in a grand context. And I learned it from my seminary professors. They'd tell us, all right, we're going to read the book. We're going to deep dive in the book of Matthew this year. Let's go and read it 3 or 4 times. Don't look at the headers. Just read the book. No, this is where Paul talks about this and that. Just read it, right? So that all you're getting is a quick context to it. Now you have something you can start to pull the parts and pieces about because you know where it's going, which is super significant to understanding it. And that's really how I came to Jesus, was listening to it multiple times, reading it for a couple times, and getting it in me first before I ever got deep study out of it.
Well, I'm going to do exactly what you just said. Unless you're going to rewatch this episode so I can write that down.
And that's very simple. Just read it, for context. Read it again for who God and Jesus are, and the Holy Spirit. It's a 3-part God. And then read it for what he says about you. It's very, very simple.
I like that. Yeah, that is really simple. And it definitely makes sense because, I look back on, when I was a kid going to church, we did a Bible study where we picked something. I don't remember much of that.
Because you're trying to put a puzzle piece in a puzzle you've never seen.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
It's Mickey's ear. Where does Mickey's ear go in the puzzle? Is he laying on his side? Is he upside down? Is he dancing?
So that makes total sense. So thank you so much. That's gonna help me out a lot. And my best friend Kyle, he's also on the same journey as me. So yeah, I'm gonna give him a call right after this and be like, hey, this is what we gotta do.
And just thank you. Read it slow, read it fast. Just I'd rather have people in it than be worried about, how does this apply to me? You're not there yet.
Yep. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. So, what else are you working on?
Well, I'm working on. I've got a couple of teachings I'm working on a teaching for next week on Magnify the Lord, Not the Problem. I'm teaching in my own group on Facebook on identity in Christ. And it's going a whole different direction than I ever thought it would. I thought, okay, we're going to talk about God is love, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about new creation, all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, we're going to talk about building strongholds of renewing your mind to what he says. And just the other day, I was on 1 Timothy 1:18, fight with the prophetic word spoken over you and get in there and keep moving forward, Timothy. And so, those are some of the projects I'm working on. I've got a book that's coming out of this identity series called Identity Restored.
Awesome.
And I'm really big into the identity in Christ stuff right now because I'm like, I need it. So if I need it, everybody needs it. So my audience is loving what I'm doing right now, and they're just they're like, wow, you went to a whole new level. And I was like, I know, right? It's crazy.
Well, that's awesome. You're doing great things, so keep it up, which I know you will. You definitely got the energy to keep going.
I do.
So that's
I
awesome.
do.
So I gotta ask, so my slogan is your abilities are infinite. What does that mean to you?
Oh, your abilities are infinite? Hey, if Jesus wanted us to think small, he did a bad job.
Yep.
Because he says nothing is impossible. Renew your mind, Romans 12:2. Renew your mind to what? That nothing is impossible with God. And he's partnering with you, co-laboring, Galatians 2:20. He's co-heirs with you. He's co-creating. He's partnering up with you. And when you get to Ezekiel 37, which is the Valley of the Dry Bones for those of you. And God has taken Ezekiel out onto this precipice, and he goes, what do you see? A lot of dry bones there, God. Prophesy to them life. And he goes, Lord, or no, the Lord asked him this question, can these bones live? And he goes, oh Lord, you know. Best answer ever, right? And then he says, prophesy and bring them to life. And the bones start to unite together, and sinews and muscles, and they become a big, giant living army. And it's this impossible stuff that God does. And most of the time, when we first hear it, it'll sound ridiculous. Then it'll sound possible. Then it'll sound probable. And then we get fully convinced on it if we keep meditating on it. Gideon in Judges 6, he was like, I'm the youngest in my family. What are you telling me? I'm a valiant warrior. And he literally argues with God. And I'm just like, sounds about right. And so he's telling God how weak he is. And then God keeps telling him, look, Gideon, I know the Midianites look like big army. 135,000, we find out a chapter and a half later. And he goes, can you defeat one man? Well, yeah, of course I can defeat one man. Of course, I'm adding a little context to the words that we get. And he goes, great, defeat them like they're one man. That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And yet, what happens? 300 armed with a shofar, a pot, and a torch. Where's my sword? That's a ridiculous word.
Yep.
And what? He said, okay, I'll do it. But he threw down a few things, a couple fleeces, tested out, made sure God was bigger than Baal, the whole do battle. And he was like, all right, let's do it. This is crazy, but let's do it. So, yeah.
Awesome. So, how can people reach out to you?
Did I send you my calendar? Sorry, my anti-spyware thing just tried to start a scan. I'm shutting it down. Distracted there for a second. Well, you can email me at claire@cultivatingtransformation.com, or I can send you my calendar and they can book a call with me and talk about it, because I keep having unexamined beliefs that are holding you back, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you. And do you have any last words of wisdom?
I think the biggest thing is learn where you're gifted and do your best to motivate everything in your life, education-wise, and read these testimonies, or biographies. I was thinking of Temple Grandin. She did an amazing job, and as a PhD, why? She found her niche. Find your niche and organize your life around it as much as possible. There'll be things you got to do that you don't want to do, but it's so much easier when most of your stuff is filling you up. Then you get energy to do the stuff that maybe isn't.
Yep, exactly. That's pretty much exactly how I live. I figured out what I like to do, but, half my time is spent doing those things that I don't like to do. But those things I don't like to do are helping the things that I like to do.
Right.
So, you gotta do the hard things to succeed in life.
Yeah.
That's just all there is.
And when you're excited about stuff, because you're not going, oh, I gotta write that sales copy. Just do it. Get it done. Chances are it's easier if you don't think about it for 6 hours and go, I gotta write that sales copy at 3:00. Just do it first.
Well, and the trick that I recently learned is from Mel Robbins, and it's her 5-second rule. That's all you gotta do. If you're thinking of doing something, just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and do it. Then you don't think about it.
Yeah,
So,
and it's actually science. There's a handful of things that will break your mental track. Laughing will clear out your brain, and you can think clearly, and you're not overwhelmed. 5, 4, 3. It's just neuro-linguistic programming.
Yep.
And it's the little things. I have that written on my journal at the very top. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off.
Yep. It works. It really works. So
it does.
It's so simple.
And one of the questions that I've been asking myself comes from Jack Canfield. And it says, what am I pretending not to know right now? And it's usually the thing you're procrastinating. And you're like, okay, I'm going to get that done today, and I'm going to stop procrastinating it. And it gives you energy because you've made a decision, and now you're going to do it.
Yep, I love that. All right, well, this has been really great, so thank you so much. If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me here. The Nick Heart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth, help more people. Alright, everyone, remember, your abilities are infinite.